it started in the unlikely surroundings of a Taliban prison in Afghanistan.
You were imprisoned.
Yes, I was held for 11 days by the most evil, brutal regime in the world, according to George Bush and Tony Blair. It was a terrifying experience that I didn't think that I would survive. But throughout the ordeal, I was treated with a courtesy and respect that I hadn't expected.
But how did you end up there?
Well, I had entered the country illegally without a passport and visa. It was the build-up to the war, and I wanted to see what life was like for ordinary Afghan people. And so I couldn't get a visa. They didn't want Westerners into the country. They were on the verge of war, so I sneaked in. I was determined to get in. And
Who were you working for at the time?
I was the chief reporter of the Sunday Express newspaper in London, and I just wanted to find out what life was like for real, ordinary Afghan people.
And then they caught you and held you.
After 2 days, I was rumbled as I headed back. I was done for by a donkey and fell off this donkey and was arrested.
Now, what intrigued you about the Taliban?
I watched them for 11 days, and I saw that their religion was more than just something that was carried out on a Friday. It was part of their life. It was the way they ate, the way they slept, the way they dressed, the way they acted. Everything had an Islamic context. In fact, with the Taliban, it was quite clearly a way of life. And this made me very interested in how it worked. And about 6 days into my captivity, I was asked if I wanted to embrace Islam.
They asked you?
Yes, they invited me, and I just said that I couldn't make such a life-changing decision while I was in prison, but I said, if you let me go, I promise I will read your holy book and any supporting literature. And against all the odds, they let me go a few days later while they still held on to other Westerners. I think it could have been because I had acted like the prisoner from hell. I didn't want I really genuinely thought that they would kill me. And any act of kindness that they showed towards me, I saw that as a trick.
You didn't trust them?
I didn't trust them. I rather foolishly believed George Bush and Tony Blair. I mean, they wouldn't lie, would they? So, so I railed against my captors. I spat at them. I swore at them. I threw things at them. I just wanted to accelerate my demise because I didn't want this ordeal to go on for years, to be tortured or abused. And their response to my very bad behaviour was surprise. And they kept saying, why are you acting like this? You were our guest. And I'm thinking, why are they acting like this? They're supposed to be brutal and evil. But as I say, while they held on to other Westerners, they did release me on humanitarian grounds. And when I returned to London, I thought I made a promise and I'll keep my word. But I also needed to know about Islam because I was interested in matters connected with the Middle East and Asia. And I realized just by simple observation of the Taliban that Islam was not something that you picked up and put down again. It was a way of life. And I thought, how can I write with any authority or understanding of the Muslim world unless I know more about this faith?
Prior to your experience with the Taliban, did you have any exposure about Islam? Did you meet Muslims before? I mean, what sort of knowledge did you have about Islam?
What I knew about Islam, you could probably write on the back of a postage stamp. And all of that was wrong anyway. And I began to think about this. I mean, I was brought up in the northeast of England in a white working class community. Nothing as exotic as Islam crossed my horizon at all. So I thought, well, where have I picked up this idea that Islam is violent, brutalizes and oppresses women? And I could trace it back to television, to cartoons, to this slow, subliminal, drip, drip, drip narrative that anything from the East is violent, aggressive and oppressive. And I began to realize that I hadn't picked up a book about Islam or the Muslim world, but I had been subliminally brainwashed to think that this is an area that is violent and oppressive.
So after you came back from Afghanistan, you started fulfilling the promise you made. You started reading books about Islam, or started reading the Quran, or what?
I began reading the Quran, and I was given an English translation by Yusuf Ali, which also had additional footnotes, and it had an index in the back. So being a lifelong promoter of women's rights, I went straight to the back to find the chapter on how to abuse women, how to prevent education, how to force marriage. Of course, I couldn't find anything. And so I started reading it and was just amazed on so many different levels, because the Quran makes it crystal clear that women are equal in spirituality, worth and education. And it is totally gender balanced.